Your initial reaction to this news.
My initial gut reaction is that the defense is pulling out all the stops to distract I think the public from the fact that this case is going to trial over the next couple of weeks. I think that it's it's so unusual that I can't even begin to explain um, my surprise when seeing that a former juror who sat through the entire trial, although she wasn't a deliberating juror, now has become an attorney for the defense. I think we should probably start coining stealing Julie Chen's "expect the unexpected" because it's so unusual that I think it probably has never happened, maybe in the history of the country before.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. I mean, like let's break it down into like all the things that make this so unusual. Like I mean, I want to give you a chance to say it, but the way I see it is like, first of all, the fact that there's a second trial is already weird. The fact that a juror
Yep.
was a lawyer is a little weird. Then when you mix it all together, like it's just
It's really, because I think anybody who is in the system as an attorney, obviously we respect the jurors' process as, really the sanctity of the system. The fact that there are a number of jurors who, whether they end up being deliberating jurors or not, whether they're alternates, they, certainly form a bond. They certainly form relationships, and that is very separate from the attorneys for whether it be the Commonwealth and for the defense. They're really kept in different sort of categories. And so when we intertwine them, I think it's hard to underestimate the information that generally would not be shared that might possibly be being shared now with the defense, since she's one of the attorneys on the team. So it certainly feels wrong, but sometimes just because something feels wrong in the law doesn't mean there is a legal reason why it can't happen. I've gone through, all the master rules of professional ethics and conflict of interest, and I don't think there is legally any precedent for Attorney George not to enter an appearance. I don't think there's any basis that the court could take her off the case. But sometimes it's one of those things that you just get a little feeling of, this doesn't quite feel right. And that's the feeling I got when I saw her appearance entered on behalf of Karen Reed.
I mean, is there any chance there's no law out there about this because nobody predicted this would ever happen?
Yes, I would guess that there is no precedent because it's not only has it never happened, but I don't think you could even imagine that it would happen in any scenario, that a sitting juror on a trial that lasted months would then become counsel for the defendant in the retrial. It's maybe you could write it for a script for a movie, but it's certainly not one that I think any lawyer practicing would predict.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about the information sharing concerns? Like, I mean, my understanding at least is that like lawyers aren't allowed to seek out information from prior jurors. So what's your concern there?
That's correct. So it's not that jurors are allowed to share whatever they want after the fact, after the case has ended, after the trial has ended. Neither party, whether it's the defense nor the Commonwealth, they can't seek out jurors. They can't ask them for information relative to whether it's deliberations or conversations that they had prior to deliberations. So there's no bar technically on Attorney George providing information about discussions to counsel. So it's certainly unusual, and I think it's unprecedented, but I don't think there is any legal manner in which she would be precluded from providing that information to defense.
And then can you talk a little bit too about what we know about her experience? I don't think she's ever practiced criminal law before.
So I know I was able to do a little bit of a search, and it looks like she's been practicing for a couple of years, and previously did employment in labor law. So this would be her first sort of foray into the criminal world. Thinking a little bit about it, I think that she might have been brought on for maybe the sort of single purpose of helping to pick the jury, because now she has, really inside information about what the case looked like when it was presented, how she viewed it as a juror, and how she views it now as an attorney. But I don't expect that she would be arguing in court at all, that she would be taking any witnesses, certainly not for somebody who's never had criminal experience at all, never mind in a homicide trial. So I anticipate that she'll probably play a limited role in terms of jury selection. But as with this case, you never know.
Right, but just the strangeness of her addition to the team really, it seems, cannot be overstated.
I don't think so. I mean, it's hard to separate, and and I know it's sometimes difficult for, there's so many moving parts when it comes to this case, and one of them very clearly is the use of the media, of social media, of sort of the public perception and how the defense team wants to present. So I think it's certainly from their perspective presents well that they were able to hire an attorney who is formerly a juror, because what they, I think, want the inference to be is that this was a sitting juror on this case, and she believes so strongly in Karen Reed's position that she has now joined the team. So it plays a role publicly, but I think the actual consequence in court is probably negligible.
Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to look into your crystal ball. Do you anticipate the prosecutors would have any response to this? And if so, I mean, you kind of hinted to this earlier, like, is there anything they can do?
I don't think there's anything they can do. I don't think they will necessarily object to it. I would not be surprised if Attorney Brennan, when we're in court on the next court date, puts it on the record and brings it up that, they're probably going to say that they feel like there is it gives the appearance of a conflict, although it might not be a conflict. And I think the Commonwealth probably wants that said in open court on the record. But I'm not sure that Judge Canoni has any legal basis to remove her. She's an attorney barred in Massachusetts. She has no discipline. Obviously, Karen Reed is entitled to counsel of her choosing. So it looks like she's probably on the case for good.
And this is I think my final question, and I don't even know if you want to reflect on this, but at least for my reporting and generally, like, can you talk about the gag order and like the impact this now has? Like, we're not in court for another 6 days, and all we have is that docket item that she's appearing now. Like, there's
Right.
no way to know more.
And I think that's probably purposeful as part of sort of the PR perspective from the defense, because now what are we all doing? Now we're all talking about it. We don't have the ability to inquire more. We can't ask them any questions. They can't answer. So it sort of leaves everybody who's covering the case in this sort of, hanging moment. And I think I think the defense is they're very good at tactically releasing information and filing documents with, it's sort of in a specific timeline. So I'm not surprised that they did this now. That, I think it sort of distracts from the fact that there's been a motion to continue that was denied. The defense filed a motion to stay in federal court that was denied. I think that it appears likely that the First Circuit Court of Appeals, based on the case law, is likely to affirm Judge Taylor's decision. So we really have had a sort of set of events that have not gone on the defense's side. And this is a distraction from my perspective to sort of look the other way and, look at the fact that, we have a juror now. We have a juror on our team as an attorney. And it's so unprecedented that we'll probably all be talking about that instead of the fact that all of these other things are likely going against defense. So it's an interesting tactical move, and PR wise, I think they do a very good job.